Coming into the 2023 season, we're going to have a bunch of players who are going to be campaigning for the Rookie of the Year award. And to be 100% honest, I've got two players who I think are more likely to win it than Victor Wembanyama. Now, I want to set a couple ground rules right from the jump. So first and foremost, none of the opinions in this video is designed to shame or put Victor down in any way, because I believe he's going to have a great future and a great NBA career from this point forward. However, I do want to say that there are just a couple players who I think are going to have a better rookie campaign. That's really it. Second of all, the three players that we're going to talk about in this video are coming from different paths to make it to the NBA. So the stats that we're going to be talking about aren't on even playing field, but we're going to use what we got, obviously. So with that being said, let's get right to it. So I think when you do these kind of videos, you've got to give the flowers to the player deservingly, right? So I think that Victor deserves all the recognition that he's gained, and I want to talk about exactly why is it he was so sought after, right? So the dude is 7'2", and he's got handles like we've never seen at his size. He can block, he can play defense, he can play offense, he can shoot from the outside, everything. You name it, he's got it, basically, right? He's not a bad passer. I've seen some actually pretty good passes from him, but nonetheless, it's not like he's running point or anything. So it's not, a huge aspect of his game. Now, when you think about his actual production, this past year over in France, he averaged 21 points per game while averaging over 10 rebounds per game as well. But the more impressive number, in my opinion, is, of course, his blocks. Dude was blocking about 3 shots per game. And when you consider this past season, the NBA leader in blocks per game was actually Anthony Davis at about 3.1. So essentially, if Victor can come into the league doing about the same level of production on the defensive end, he might lead the league in blocks already walking in. 3 blocks per game is impressive. Now, when it comes to his actual, downfall, if you want to say, the things that I don't think he does as well that, unless you're really paying attention to the stats, you might not know is, granted, although the highlights will show him making all the shots, they're highlights for a reason, of course. He's making shots. Now, when you actually look at his actual percentages, they're not as great as you would expect. When you consider the majority of centers they tend to have a good field goal percentage, Victor's field goal percentage is probably a lot lower than you'd imagine. Now, again, that was playing in France, so again, not the most even playing field with the other two that we'll talk about, but he did only average about 47% from the field, which is considerably low for centers. You think about, guards who are taking jump shots from the perimeter. Obviously, if they can get over 50%, you want to assume that a center who should be playing closer to the rim can get to 50% as well. But like I said, 47% from the field. But even worse when it comes to his three-point percentage. On about 5 shots per game, he'd hit about 1.5 of them. So essentially, he was at about 27.5% from 3. Which is, again, considerably low. If you were to put that same percentage in the NBA, you would be just trashing on the dude and wondering why the dude's taking as many threes as he is. Now, granted, while I think it's perfectly fair to compare his blocks per game to Anthony Davis this past season, I want to also put in perspective what that three-point percentage at 27.5% looks like. We know it's bad, but how bad is it really, right? So there's an all-time great who's actually playing in the league right now, bona fide Hall of Famer, but granted, he's been trashed on pretty much his entire career for his shooting ability, right? That player is Russell Westbrook. His career average on three-pointers is above 30%. So basically, coming into the league, Victor is not as great of a shooter as we actually think he will be, and the Spurs offense doesn't dictate a lot of three-pointers, so I'm not expecting that to be a big problem for his game. Quite frankly, that's going to be a plus, the fact that he's not going to be shooting as many threes, because I don't think that the Spurs offensive system is actually going to allow him to shoot that many threes from the perimeter. I think he's going to be playing more inside. It's just good to know that he has the ability to do it, which makes him a threat when he's on the perimeter, but again, I don't think that we're looking for him to be shooting threes. You want to get this guy closer to the rim for obvious reasons. With all that being said, I think it's time that we move on and talk about the first of 2 players that I think have a better chance to win the Rookie of the Year award, and that's Scoot Henderson, right? So when it comes to Scoot, let's talk about the narrative reasons why he has a better chance. Then we'll get to his game. So he's coming in to basically essentially replace Damian Lillard, right? Damian Lillard has been the cornerstone of this franchise for years and years, and now Scoot's coming in pretty much afterwards, and people like me and many others are going to wonder, how will the Trailblazers actually do without Dame? So he's going to have some eyes on him, probably more than what the Trailblazers have had in the past. Not because Damian Lillard wasn't fun to watch. Of course he was fun to watch. But most of the time, you weren't having high expectations for the Trailblazers. And granted, you don't have high expectations for them now. You do want to see what he's going to be able to do. So there is a chance that he's going to get more coverage than Dame might have in the past, because we didn't talk about Dame often up until it was time to get into playoff time or anything like that, or if he had a clutch shot or whatever. That's when we covered the Trailblazers. I think that Scoot has a better chance to actually get more coverage than Dame did. And part of the reason also is that once Damian Lillard is indeed traded, there's going to be a haul that he's going to receive. That team is going to get better. Who knows with how many picks or what players are going to come to them, but he is actually going to have probably a very good supporting cast around him. When you think about Vooch already, Vooch is going to be a good pick and roll partner for him. When you think about Jeremy Grant, who also will be a great pick and roll partner, Jeremy Grant can also space the floor. He's a fairly decent shooter from the outside, and he's also got a lot of great defensive attributes, offensive attributes. He's good cutter, everything you name. Jeremy Grant is a very, very good player. So please don't let the contract fool you. Although he did probably get a little bit overpaid, he is still a very, very good player. Then you also look at Anthony Simons, and this is another player who, again, coming off a very good year, coming off a support role for Damian Lillard. I don't see any of these players being afraid to let Scoot kind of do his thing, mature into his role, and learn what he's doing. All three of the players have been great at playing within their role and never trying to be something that they're not. So I've got a lot of hope for him and the team that he's going to have around him to support him and lift him up and, just further his capability to win that award. Now, in terms of his game, the dude's a highlight reel, right? In my opinion, when you look at the poster that he had earlier this past season, to me, it's one of the most impressive posters I've seen. A lot of times you see these guys jump into a guy who was standing there, and, this guy was actually running with Scoot, and he still dunked on him. So he's an athletic player. He's got the game. He's got the speed. He's got the strength when you look at the guy. I mean, and the dude's got more of the body built for the type of contact and the type of physicality that might come into the league. Whereas Victor and our other guys, a little bit on the thinner side. So I think that he's got a better chance, just in the sense that I don't expect him to miss as many games. He seems more able to handle a physical game. In regards to the numbers there in the G League, this past season, he actually averaged about 17 points on about 7 assists per game, which I think that's something that we can see improvement on. I don't think that he's going to play as low of the minutes as he did in the G League. He was only playing about 30 minutes per game, so I expect for him to actually be putting up a few more minutes, which will get him a few more shot attempts and so forth. In regards to his shooting capabilities, he shot about the same percentage as Victor did, so I'm not expecting him to be much better of a shooter, especially when you consider the three ball. But when it does come into the perimeter game, I do think that he's going to have a better chance to improve his perimeter game because unlike Victor, who's really going to be emphasized to stay within the paint, you're going to actually see Scoot probably get a lot better training, a lot better practice on his outside game. So he's going to develop an outside game probably much better than Victor would be, just because that's going to be more of a focal point of his game. And I don't expect it to be a focal point of Victor's game. I think that's going to be it to talk about when it comes to Scoot. The player who I really do think has a better chance, however, is going to be Chet Holmgren. Now, I have a couple reasons why I think that he's going to be the actual Rookie of the Year, but let's first go over the narrative reasons again, like we did like Scoop. So first and foremost, he's kind of like a second-year player, but he's really in his first, because he didn't play the first year because of his injury. We've seen this before. Most notably, recently, was Ben Simmons winning his Rookie of the Year award because he got to spend a lot of time in the facility, got to learn NBA game without playing. He didn't actually have to play at first, but then he obviously got a good idea of what the roles are, how things are going to be done, a lot more film with the team, and full understanding of an NBA level play before he ever set foot on the actual NBA court, right? Chet has that same advantage coming into this upcoming season. So he obviously got to watch the Thunder do what they've done. He already understands the roles that everybody's going to be playing. So I think it's going to be a much easier fit than others have seen. Now, outside of that, the other things that he has going for him is, of course, is his game. In my opinion, he's got the most polished game coming into the NBA compared to the other two. So Scoot, again, like I mentioned, his shooting percentage wasn't necessarily the greatest. And, when it comes to the team success, most people don't really care about that for a Rookie of the Year. But I think that Chet's going to be able to see the Thunder get way better. Now, the reason I brought up that field goal percentage is coming out of college, I was actually shooting about 60% from the field. That's really good compared to Scoot and Victor both shooting in the 40s. You consider the 2-point percentage, again, he's got them beat there, and his 3-point percentage was better at 39%. Now, again, that's college ball, so the three might have been a little bit closer, but nonetheless, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to translate into the NBA. In terms of his height, he's about 7 foot, so it's only a couple of inches shorter than Victor. But when you consider the actual rebounds and everything in college, he also was pretty much at 10 per game. Now, when it comes to his actual points per game, he was only at about 14, which is, of course, a little bit lower than the other two, but I'm not as worried about that because, again, that's college ball. The minutes per game is different and everything, so I'm not really that worried about it. We got to see him in action a couple times now in Summer League, and both times he's looked impressive. We've never watched him and say, I don't know. The only thing we ever had any concern over was, of course, his weight, because he is rather slim. Now, coming into this upcoming season, he's already put on some pounds, so he's going to be a little bit closer to Victor's weight. So both are fairly, thin on frame. But I don't know. Something about Chet's game is a lot safer. He doesn't play as reckless. One thing I didn't talk about with him, of course, is going to be the blocks, right? We talked about the blocks per game when it came to Victor at 3. Now, again, on less minutes played, again, although it is college ball, so maybe the competition may not be the same as the other two, Chet's coming into the NBA averaging 3.7 blocks per game in college. Again, and that's on less minutes played. So I feel very good about the defensive impact that he can have in the league. I feel very good about the offensive impact. I feel very good about the team success that they're going to be able to experience. Although that's not normally a big factor in the Rookie of the Year award, I think that the Thunder is going to get talked about more than the other two teams because I expect both of the Thunder to be a lot more successful. I don't think that people are going to talk about the Trailblazers to the same extent that we'll talk about the Thunder. And the only reason we'll be talking about the Spurs is because of Victor. After everybody tanking to get him, it only is fitting that we're going to follow the Spurs to see exactly how he does. But at that same time, while following the Spurs and giving them the hype and giving them the attention that they kind of do deserve, because who doesn't want to talk about Victor? At that same time, we're going to be talking about Oklahoma and what they're doing over there. They nearly made the playoffs this past year, and that was already impressive. What they did almost in the playoffs, almost making the playoffs this past season, was great. And that was without a complete team. So there's a lot of good reason to think that this team is only going to get better coming into this season. And for those reasons, I have the utmost confidence when it comes to Chet winning the actual Rookie of the Year award. Because to be more honest, when it comes to the comparisons between him and Victor, their games are very similar. However, one is more polished and a little bit of a better player to start this upcoming year. And I think that's going to be Chet. So with all that being said, of course, like and subscribe. Let me know if you disagree. If there's a reason why you think that Victor is more likely to win it, let me know. Or is there another rookie? I didn't talk about Amen. I thought about it. I really, really did think about it. But I'm going to go ahead and let him not make this video. But there's other rookies that maybe you guys think is going to be, a little bit of a better idea. And with all that being said, of course, look forward to, seeing you on the next one. And thanks for listening.